up, everyone out there? Welcome back to Corked Stats on the Mayo Media Network on YouTube with your host, John Laghezza. That's Big Johnny Studs. To all my friend out there, the big dude with the big mouth from the Big Apple, coming to you worldwide from Brooklyn, New York. As always, oh my gosh, we're only going to get one chance at this video today, everybody, because my voice is not going to hold up any longer. For any of the new followers and listeners, man, we appreciate you. We're getting ready. We are going to have you ready for the upcoming 22 baseball season like nowhere else. If you like what we're doing, press the like button. Make sure you subscribe to Mayo Media Net. And check out the Fantasy Baseball Picks and Bets playlist, man. We've been going at it like gangbusters all the way throughout the lockout. We got you back. It's rankings, positions, breakdowns, sleepers, all the nuance, context, rolling charts, and loud noises that you can handle. Me, you, and the Corked Stats crew. I want to just take a second really quick to stop and appreciate some of the people that I work with, man. Patty Mayo for giving me this chance, and the producer Matt Best out there. I see you every day. There are other people working behind the scenes. I know I'm mostly the one-man band. I got my horns and my drums and all that other stuff, but enough of that. Let's get into this. It's the fastest show in MLB. Absolutely enter, everybody. Strap up, strap in. Here we go. Today's topic of conversation is going to be Red Sox megastar free agent signing, Trevor Story coming over from the Rockies. Yes, I am a big Yankee fan. I am not a wicked Sox fan, but listen, I don't care about the jersey. I make a lot of money during the season betting against my Yankees. I really don't care about that whatsoever. So we're going to get in and do some objective analysis, that thing that we do so very well. We're going to walk through last year's statistical baskets. We'll take a look at the surface production, and then I like to look at discipline, elevation, batted ball quality. We'll look at some rolling charts, averages, and hard hit rates, and then projections before we come to our conclusion. So without any further ado, just excuse the raspiness, right? I got some old school sultriness going on today. Let's take a look. As always, we begin with the tale of the tape. Trevor Story going off the board. I'm using main event ADP that just happened last night. Again, you come here for all the goodness. We are on the tip of the spear here at the Mayo Media Network. So Trevor Story with the new landing spot. He's moving up boards. Forget the old ADP. That time is now. ADP 34. Shortstop 4 in a very stacked position, so the market is very high on Story with the new landing spot, and probably with good reason. 595 plate appearances last year. The 251 average was a bit low. 88 runs, 75 ribbies. Not exactly maybe what you'd expect. In Colorado, 24 home runs is okay. The 20 steals really is what gets the Bills paid, especially in Roto, which is the focus of that ADP. I could probably tell you right now where he's going. I'm not touching Trevor Story in point leagues. I want to go for bigger OPS guys, bigger hard hit rates. We'll get into that in a little bit. Let's take another quick look at last year. 801 OPS, 221 ISO, all really good. The WRC plus just at 100. That's league average. Did it on a 293 BABIP, not something that you expect with half your games and cores. The expected stats, good, but not great. 243 XBA, 448 XLUG A3, 33 expected WOBA. The disciplinary stats are, let's call them average. Again, they're not great. 23% K to 9% walk. A 15% K minus walk rate is just average. In particular, you know, up there in the draft board, you're showing out heavy draft capital to get a guy like this. I generally like better disciplinary baskets unless they're coming with 40 home runs. Now, I guess you make the exception for players that could steal 20 bases, and that's probably part of the issue with Roto, but that's the rules as constituted. That's the games we're playing. 86% in-zone contact rate for Story. Again, good, but not great for a hitter that you're paying that much for. He does put the ball in the air a ton, keeps it off the ground. Only a 37% ground ball rate, 44% fly ball rate. That is really going to help no matter where you go. And the hard hit rates, again, good, but not great. We'll get into those just a little bit later. Everything really, you know, above average. I'm not trying to sully, demean, spoil what Story did, but you do hear about him, spoke about as this monster power hitter. People talking about 35 home run potential. I do not believe that's in the cards. 10% barrel rate, 5% blast. Max EV at 111. The expected WOBA on contact up at 400, which is a benchmark for being really, really good. So don't make a mistake. Story is viable, But remember, sprint speed is a part of that calculation, so that's not really necessarily being carried by batted ball quality. Let's dive into the discipline that we showed before. I know we have audio-only listeners, so you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast version as well. I do like to use rolling charts. I have an article coming out at The Athletic where I'll be explaining why, but in general, to oversimplify, it adds perspective. A season stat only tells you so much. We want to look at rolling charts. They will give us an idea of trend indication. On the left-hand side, we have Trevor Story's strikeout rate, and on the right-hand side, we have a Z contact. That's in-zone contact rate. The reason why I like to pair these two metrics as far as discipline goes, just cutting strikeouts is not enough. We really need batted balls to do the damage that we want to pay off the high draft cost. So we'd be looking for a lowered K rate with an increased in-zone contact rate, and that's exactly what we see. I think there are really some other really interesting lessons about technical analysis going on here. I won't be able to cover them all now, but you see Trevor Story from 2016 and 2017, the K rate was extremely high. He cut the Ks in 2018, and then for my traders out there, we begin to see a rectangular pattern. So I don't think the K rate is going to continue south from the improvements we've seen, but I do think it feels safe to say we'll see it oscillate between 20 and 27%, which is just fine, especially when we see the increased contact rate, though I would say year to year, that's been a little more volatile, right? We see another rectangular pattern, but the top of it is at 90, which is really elite. The bottom of it is at 80, which not really great for what we're paying for. Again, everything kind of coming back to 40 home run potential. You know, Jordan Alvarez will have a better contact rate than what you're getting from Trevor Story, but with all the pop in the world. The reason I mention him is, you know, he's being considered in the same part of the draft in that second and third round. So the disciplinary basket really looks very good, and it is trending in the right direction for Trevor Story. Let's hop over to the barbecue. That's your BBQ, your batted ball quality. I like to make these custom charts. I put them together for all my hitters. It'll give you an idea of how they stack up against the league and maybe give you an idea of how hard they may be to replace, or just an idea of the power basket in general. Again, for the audio listeners, we have hard hit rate on Savant. So one of those uses a subjective element, that's Fangraphs. StatCast uses a raw 95-mile-an-hour metric. I'm often asked which is the best one. The answer is both. Nuance is always the answer. Then I have barrel rate, blast rate, dynamic hard hit rate, and home run per fly ball. This is pretty much going to cover the entire power basket. And on top, you see expected WOBA and expected WOBA on contact, 339 and 402 respectively for Story, both very good. The MLB average is 317 and 376 respectively. But again, remember, sprint speed is a part of that. The power metrics here are really where I was going at when I was the low man on Story before he signed with Boston. I did not see steps forward in power. Yes, I do think he's going to get you to 20 to 25. I think that is the absolute cap. And depending where he landed, that might have really been more than I was expecting. Had he gone somewhere that was a pitcher's park, I could have seen him topping out at 18 or 19 with no problem because of the underpinning statistics. That's how I like to come to my conclusions. So the barrel rate is really just 2% better than average. The blast rate just 1% better than average. Dynamic hard hit rate just 4% better than average. This power basket is pretty close to average overall. Yes, it's slightly better across the board, but I got to emphasize the word slightly. So just keep that in mind if you're going after Trevor Story, and this is the reason why I'd probably be fading him in point leagues. Now, again, I'm not trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater for one statistic or two. Let's get into the all-important barrel rate. The trend there also really heading down when Story was striking out a lot more. He was sacrificing more, making more barrel contact, right? So you see that number up at 14. Then we set kind of a downward trend where it dipped down to 10. It went up to 12, but dipped down to 8. The reason why I walk you through that is, again, this is oversimplifying, but one of the easier ways to identify a trend is looking for either higher highs and higher lows, that is bullish, or lower highs and lower lows, and that is bearish. And that's what we've seen from Trevor Story. Now, granted, it's settled around the 10% mark, which is probably a good forecast for him. But again, I'm not seeing this push forward monster power, even if he is going to Fenway. Okay, so now let's get into the projections and what Derek Hardy and the Bat X think. $19 in shortstop 3 is pretty good. He's one of the few players projected for 631 plate appearances. This is Trevor Story. 256 BA. So again, I think Derek is being very reasonable, not looking for a huge step up in BA. Where I probably would disagree here, we have a few disagreements here. The first one is the runs. 92 runs, I know sounds very high and is pretty high. However, right now, Story's lineup projection is at like 5th. I don't think I see that happening. The person that should be bumped would be Enrique Hernandez. So I know he finished very strong leading off in the playoffs, but I feel like that's the spot most easily threatened with, Bogarts, Devers, JD Martinez, probably pretty solidified in the top third somewhere, in the top 4 somewhere. I could see bumping Hernandez to get Story more at bats, and if he ends up in the leadoff spot, he is a very good candidate for 100 runs or greater. Now, ribbies, again, with that lineup spot movement, I could see those maybe being a bit lower. So my anticipation is Story will be batting first or second, and we might see 102 runs, but maybe more like 75 ribbies. So again, I'm just fine-tuning the dials here with my own, predictions. The home runs, I can't get to 29, and I explained why. I understand he'll be in a lot of very good ballparks to hit, and that's why where I was near that, like 19 or 20 I mentioned, I think now I'm more near like 25 or 26, which was fine. Again, I'm not trying to knock Story just because he wears red laundry. That's really not my concern. But I do feel like I've data back the argument why I can't get to 29 home runs. And I could be wrong. That ballpark does play a little funny. He's going to go to Camden. He's going to go to the Bronx, So he does have a shot for 29 home runs. I just think that's shooting the moon a bit. The 17 steals probably feels a bit right also. I know a lot of people are expecting 20 or better. The Red Sox really don't run much, and I actually wonder how that might be affected with the lineup placement. I wonder if they'd be more apt to take chances with Story if he were batting 5th with, less threats on the bases behind him than risking being out with your premier hitters, and Boston has no shortage of those. So I think with my own calculations, I probably end up right about the same, $18 or $19 number. Also, people, remember, we use dollar values to try and be concise and just have a singular value that we can compare with. You do not overreact to like 30 or 40 cents, and maybe even $1. Okay, even $1. Maybe $1 is where I start to draw the line, but we do not overreact to that. Again, one little fine tune. Again, let's say you believe Story's batting average, that people have spoke about the splits, something that we have heard a lot of on Twitter, and that's where I want to take my conclusion. So, in conclusion, I think Story's just fine, and I think the landing spot was tremendous for him. I was not on him early. I understand why people were, but I think if you're doing victory laps, please incorporate the landing spot into it. Because had he gone to somewhere more spacious, I think that could have turned down the home runs. Now, that might have been good for average more space. It also might have been good for his steals, depending on the team. So, again, I'm really trying to be very fair and data back all of my, I don't want to call it opposition, but just my analysis of Trevor Story. So I think he'll be great. Oh, I wanted to get to the splits that I forgot. Now, I think people maybe have made too much about the splits for Trevor Story. We have seen players, succeed after leaving. We have seen players fall on their face after leaving. And I think where I'm at right now is, of course, I'm going to make more of a contrarian argument. And what I've noticed in, DFS and betting, and please make sure if you're into either of those, keep your, station locked on the MMN, because we are going at it 115 off the crack of the bat. I cannot wait to bet. In fact, I was on the Pat Mayo Experience with Chris Meany. Check that out. We did American League futures. Definitely a few bets in there. We actually lay out a couple places to put your chips right now, and those prices are always moving, so I would want to get on that if I were into it. Okay, so back to Trevor Story and the splits. A lot of people talking about it, and I think it's a general overreaction. Yes, Coors is a wonderful place to hit, but that doesn't say it all. And where I was going to the daily kind of view that I get is we notice the drop off after the move from home to away. And now this is something a lot of sharp people have noted. And what even sharper people have noted, and something that I like to do is kind of, I traverse the entire baseball industry, and that's why I feel like I can be so effective as I'm in betting and in fantasy and in DFS, but even into some of the more scientific stuff, like understanding ball flight. And that's where a lot of the new science has gone. And, I've had Professor Barton Smith on my show, and I spoke to Russell Carlton and Rudy Campbell on the Corked Stats audio podcast. If you're into that kind of stuff, please check that out. That's a standalone pod. We do a lot of strategy stuff. Rate review over there. Let me know how we're doing. And I think a lot of those are evergreen. You really learn a lot about projections and the underpinnings, stabilization rates, how we get there, and ball flight. And one of the things that we've noticed about ball flight with Colorado is the fashion of the break is different in the altitude. That explains part of the results we see in cores. It also explains the subsequent downside to the change all the time. Players are constantly making adjustments to the same pitch with different break. So I believe there's a contrarian argument that Story could actually improve leaving cores because of the stability in movement that he'll find, and not always moving into and out of these really, drastically different environments. So I think that'll do it from us here at Corked Stats and Big Johnny Stud. Once again, thanks to Pat Mayo, Matt Best, all of the ladies and gentlemen at the Mayo Media Net. We really love being here for you. Our time is precious, and I try and treat yours the same. So thanks for picking up what we're putting down. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Definitely check out the baseball playlist. You can get all of my work on Twitter, MLB Moving Averages. That's at MLB Moving AVG on the Bluebird Twitter machine, any time of day, any day of the week. I've got articles coming out almost daily at The Athletic, and we are getting ready for betting season. So from the big dude with the big mouth from the Big Apple, when you work this hard, it feels a lot less like luck, don't it, everybody? All right, catch us on the flip side, yo. Peace.